What's up? My name is Trenton Sandler. I'm a middle distance runner for LSU, and I just finished up my freshman season. I've been home for about a week now and just started training again, and I thought I'd take this time to recap how my first year as a collegiate athlete went. But first, for those of you who don't know me, let me break down my entire high school career in less than 60 seconds. My first time running was in 7th grade cross country, where we ran a mile race, and I only did it because I wanted to get in shape for soccer, and it was also the only sport available to us. I followed that up by running track in the spring, but running is a stretch. I mostly did field events and the occasional mile here and there. In high school though, I was planning on starting to take track seriously until I lost my freshman year to COVID. My sophomore year I came back and I found that I really liked the 800. I ran 158 and I actually got a regional mark in the 800 that year and got to go to state where I took 6th. All throughout high school though, soccer was still my main sport and I only really started training for track in the late fall. My junior year of track I randomly popped to 155 in the 800 and I made state again, this time taking 3rd. This year I was planning on going to Nike Nationals, but I actually got a stress fracture about a week out and spent the whole summer cross training and then training for soccer again. The fall of my senior year I started visiting schools before eventually committing to LSU. Unfortunately though, right at the start of my season my foot started hurting and I actually turned out to have another stress fracture. I decided to run through it, did most of the season in the pool except for a select number of workouts that I did on the track, though I was still able to scrape together 4th in the state in the 800 and actually win the 4x8 at state. Then I took the summer off because of the severity of the previously mentioned stress fracture, and now you're all caught up. So the first few weeks being on campus sucked. I was out of shape. I had only been running about 2 weeks and I was on about 10 miles a week. I still remember my first ever run arriving in Baton Rouge. I met up with one of my roommates and another one of the freshmen and we went on like a 6-mile jog. This run we ended up going like 6 to 6:30 pace for like 6 miles, which it's not insane. But for me, out of shape, unadjusted to the humidity, that was hell. A couple of weeks of runs just like that later and I was back in decent shape. By mid-September, I was able to hang with the long-distance guys on like half of their workouts, and I was also doing workouts with the mid-distance group because I was actually getting the worst of both of their trainings and combining it. So obviously this season I did not run cross-country as I was definitely not in shape for it, and I hadn't ever really done cross-country before, unless you count that 7th or 8th grade season or that one random 5K I jumped in my junior year. So in the late fall, things really started kicking in gear for me. I was killing workouts, I was finally getting in shape. I remember this one workout we did, it was like 4x3x200, and I had never done any workouts like this in high school. I was mostly a threshold-based runner, which is weird, but my coach thought that I got all my speed from soccer training and then I could just run threshold and track and it would combine to make me a great mid-distance runner. But anyway, I'd never done a workout like this before. And what it was 4x3x200 with 30 seconds between each rep, and then you got 6 minutes between sets. We were clicking off like 26s and some 27s in there too, and it wasn't too bad. The one biggest thing I remember from that workout is that I actually beat Mats. He ran 148 this season, 47. I don't know if I ever beat him in another workout after that, but yeah, that felt really good. Around this time, I also did a random road race 5K where I ran like 15:40. It felt easy and it was a significant PR for me, so I knew I was getting in shape until late November when I got hurt. I had just gone home for Thanksgiving break and I had used a certain e-stim. I'm not going to name any names. It's my fault. It's not theirs. But I actually ended up with some nerve damage in my left knee. And nerve damage, it was a weird thing because every single day I felt like it's going to go away tomorrow. Man, I feel like I could really run tomorrow. And that I'll run tomorrow turned into days, which turned into weeks, which turned into almost 2 months. And before I knew it, I missed the entire first half of my indoor season before even setting foot on the ground again. So now we're looking at February. And February became a huge training block for me. I was working hard day in, day out. I was doing doubles on cross training all the time, just desperately trying to cling on to fitness and gain some back so that I could make my debut outdoor. But during this time period, it was just so lonely. My teammates were out traveling to exotic locations every weekend while I was stuck at home watching them on TV. And being alone in the apartment wasn't even the worst part. When I go to dinner, there was nobody there. When I go to the training room, it was just me. The trainers weren't even there. But something about this motivated me. It kept my head down, it kept me grinding, and I came out of it with some fitness. During this time, I also hopped into a random 3K and paced my teammates through the mile. I ran like 4:32 and it felt easy, and that's when I started to realize, maybe I could get back in shape by outdoor. So into March and coming down to the very first outdoor race, I was really hoping to make that travel squad. I talked to my coach, he said it was looking good. I was hanging with the guys on workouts again, and I thought, you know what? I might have a chance at this. Our first meet was in Miami, and it doubled as a spring break trip, and I was lucky enough to make that final travel roster. Looking back at this meet, I actually think of this as somewhat of like the most perfect race of my season. I ran 3:56 in the 1500, which converting it is about a 4-second PR from high school, and I actually closed my last 400 in 59 seconds. Honestly, it felt pretty easy, And knowing that I was only a couple weeks back into training, running like that, it gave me some really good motivation for the rest of the season. I followed this up later. I ran a 4x4 split. We're not going to talk about that. I run it like a distance runner. I need to learn how to run someone teach me how to run the 400, please. After we returned from Miami, we had a couple of home meets back to back. At the first one, I ran the 600, which is a weird distance I had never done before, but I went like 123. Again, just like the 4x4 from the previous week, I felt like I had no speed, which becomes a common theme through the rest of this season. But the week following that, we had a huge meet. It was like 14 Power 5 schools called Battle on the Bayou. I actually vlogged that meet. You can see it right here. But anyway, that was a big week for me. I ran the 1500 in a packed heat. I came away with another PR of 354. This one I ran a little differently and it felt a little harder. My biggest problem this week was that I felt like I had no kick. I came out faster, I ran a really good third lap, and then my fourth lap I kind of just sloped off. But I wasn't super worried about it because I had another good 2 weeks to train before we headed out to Brian Clay in California. Man, Brian Clay. Yeah, we're just going to skip past that whole thing. No one ran well, no one PR'd, not even going to say my time, I'll put it right there, but no, get that out of here. Coming back to Louisiana again, my knee was tripping a little bit. I got that sorted out with the trainers and I was back to full training. So now we're coming into the late half of the regular season. We had 2 more home meets back to back again where I ran the 1500 at both. So here at the LSU Alumni Gold, I ran 352 in the 1500, another 2-second PR, but coach knew I could go faster. We were talking, constantly preaching that I could go sub 350 if I just put the race together. I knew the fitness was there. I just had to put the race together. And that's what I tried to do the next week at the LSU Invitational. Going into this meet though, all the odds seemed to be stacked against me. My Zoom Victories actually ripped out the sides in a workout the day before the race. So I had to get some new Dragonflies, a half size up from what I was wearing, and I had never tried Dragonflies before. In addition to this, the heat was insanely spread out. We had like guys in the low 340s all the way to guys who hadn't even broken 4 in the 1500. And the wind was blowing so hard it felt like I was back in Kansas. Regardless of these factors though, I still feel like this was one of my best races. I did not get the time that I wanted. I came away with a 354. But I ran the first 800 in 203. It was something I'd been struggling with all years. I had been constantly coming out in races too slow and trying to rely on my kick to bring me back up to the front. So in this race, it was a really nice change to actually be able to push myself. Even if the time didn't come, I set myself up well, which is all that you can ask for. I finished right in a big group. The notable ones of this pack, there was a 346 1500 guy, there was a 749 3K guy, and there was a 1344 5K guy. So looking at these guys, you know, I really held my own against some pretty good competition. So now at the end of the regular season, we're looking at a decision. Coach has got to narrow down the roster to 30 guys to take to the SEC championships. Ultimately, I didn't make this 30-person cut, and my season was over. Things are still up in the air about whether or not I'm going to be running cross country next season, but anyway, I'm actually going into my first ever summer of training, and hopefully a big fall block after that. I'm going to be filming the whole thing, so make sure you subscribe down below to follow along. Oh, and hey, you remember that one huge meet that I talked about, Battle on the Bayou? Well, I actually vlogged that whole thing. You can watch it here. Or I also got a day in the life that you can watch here. So subscribe, stay tuned for more, and I'll see y'all this summer.